You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens a door on men's mental health. And tonight's guest, we have rising star comedian Louie Mclean. Louie, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Me, mate.
How are you today?
All good. Yeah, caught me on a good day, really, which is quite nice, you know.
Go on,
For a
what's that mean?
mental health podcast.
Mental health podcast.
Yeah, you know, some days I'm a bit all over the place, but yeah, I'm in a good place at the moment. So yeah, nice to be on here.
Great. And we're grateful for having you on here. So for those who've not seen you, your comedy, your performances, tell us a little bit about who is Louie.
Doing comedy just over 3 years ago now, but yeah, it's not my full-time job, so I hesitate to call myself a comedian. Do you know what I mean? I sort of, when you hear people say that, I'm always a bit like, well, you know, it's not your full-time employment, but it is something I do. And yeah, I'm also a gas engineer. Yeah, just a bloke, really, mate.
Okay. So where did you grow up?
In a place called Chadwell Heath, which is on the border of sort of East London and Essex. Quite a contested issue, but it's not really relevant for this. But yeah, I lived in a place called Chadwell Heath up until the age of 14. I lived there. I remember being I had quite a nice childhood, primary school and that, and then when I went to secondary school in a place called Ilford, which was a sort of quite a little bit rougher, really. And then we moved to Spain when I was 14.
How was that move for you, moving to Spain, leaving your mates, etc.?
Yeah, it was hard, especially, you know, when you're 14, you kind of just finding your identity a little bit, I think, you know. So to then go over there, but it's also got the bit of, when you're over there, you can then become or be whoever you sort of think you are or would like to be, you know, because when I was a kid, I was really shy, very, very shy, and quite scared of everything, really. And then we moved over there when I was 14, and got like a good group of mates and that, and it was just a lovely place where I lived. Very different to where I grew up, you know.
Whereabouts in Spain were you?
It's on the Costa Blanca. It's about an hour away from Benidorm. I have to say that to people so they'll recognise something I'm talking about, but it was nothing like Benidorm, you know. But I used to spend a lot of time when I was out there going Benidorm and that with my mates. But where I was, Javier is a very nice part of Spain.
Okay, and how did you adapt to school?
Well, I went to an English school, so I kind of settled in there okay, but because the school I'd come from in Ilford was quite a rough school, so there was like quite a lot of trouble, be a lot of fights and that at school. Remember on my first day seeing like someone's head get smashed into like a glass panel thing, like the first day of school, of secondary school. But there was a lot of, it was at the time, and that still goes on now, but when people just started with knives, you know, sort of robbing people and that. So then to go out to Spain was like a very different place. So like I say, I went to an English school and I kind of settled in there quite quickly and got a load of, you know, English mates, really. Well, a few Dutch people. It was like an international school, so there was Dutch people and all sorts. But the problem with being out there is there's a lot of distractions. You know what I mean? If you're in school in England, you know, unless you live by the coast, you're not popping down to the beach. So there's too many distractions, really, which, in hindsight, kind of fucked up my schooling, really, or my concentration levels, shall we say?
What were the distractions?
Well, you can go out drinking there at like sort of 14, 15. They'll serve you in bars. You know what I mean? So from quite early on, we were going out drinking in bars and things like that. So there's, you know, that my whole life at that age was just basically surrounded just about going out at the weekends, you know. And you know, when you can just go to a bar and then pop down the beach, you know, what are you going to do that day? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, sit at home reading your books, you know. So it kind of cocked that up schooling for me, really. Didn't get any A levels, just GCSEs, and then they were kind of like, at the school they were sort of like, you know, you're kind of wasting your time here. So I sort of left that and then got a little like labouring sort of jobs and that out there, and painting villas and that. And then my old man was like, you need to get a trade, really. You need, you know,
Something to fall back on.
That classic thing, yeah. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. You know, I never had a goal. Like, you know, you meet them, well, they're quite few and far between, but people at school who were like, oh, I'm going to get this degree and then get this job. They kind of have some sort of vision, and I had none of that, really. I'm still, you know, not massively ambitious, I would say. I'd like to be. I'm getting better at it, you know.
What's your Spanish like?
It's all right. I mean, this was like 20 years ago. So where we just was on holiday was where I used to live. So some of it came flooding back. I used to be able to speak it okay, but I realised a lot of it was why I wouldn't do it would be more of a confidence thing than not actually knowing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So I probably could, but I'd be too worried about my accent, or, you know,
yeah,
more worrying about it. So I could kind of understand it, but yeah, a lot of, I mean, it'd probably just be fear based, really, why I couldn't, you know, wouldn't be. Yeah.
Okay. So you come back to England what age?
Just before my 18th birthday, and started my apprenticeship at British Gas.
Okay.
And I've just sort of been there since, and it probably wouldn't have been my choice. I'm grateful now, but it wouldn't have been, you know, I hadn't envisioned myself as a tradesman. Not there's anything wrong with that, but it's you know, I don't know. My dad used to work at British Gas, and then he was a cab driver, so he was like, you know, just do that. And I had a few ideas of things that I wanted to do, but they were all pipe dreams, really, until the comedy was something that I found myself sticking to.
Okay. How did that come
about? My mum used to live in Angel, and there's a comedy club there called the Bill Murray. And I used to go there with my brother, and then later on I used to go there with my girlfriend. And I would sit. I was one of them people that would sit in there and go, "Oh, I could do that." Do you know what I mean? And she called my bluff and bought me a course. And then, you know, you find out very quickly that you probably can't do that. Do you know? It's very different to like having a laugh with your mates at the pub. So yeah, then I've done the course, and then at the end of the course, there's like you do a showcase, so that's like your first gig, and then you sort of going around doing the open mics and all things like that after.
Tell me about comedy then. Does it aid your confidence? Standing up, do you seek the adulation of the laughter?
More than I would care to admit, yeah. But it's I have a lot of problems with it. Depending on what sort of mental state I'm in, you know, if I'm feeling good, then I'm enjoying it. But if I'm attaching I had your Chris Kent on here, and he was saying like attaching your self-esteem to your comedy, and I have a lot of issues around that. So then if you do have a bad gig, and it can be saying it's completely out of your control, you know, but then I can just end up feeling terrible for a few days. But I used to get very nervous before doing it, and it would be like all day I'd feel sick and worrying and all that. And now it's just for about 15 minutes before. Okay. Yeah, you have that moment where you're like, well, this is just, because it's an obscene thing to try and do, really. If you thought about it too much, you'd be like, well, it's just fucking mental, isn't it? You know?
Yeah, I think, you know, having had a few comedians on the Hurt Locker, it's made me realise how you make it look easy, but there's a lot of effort and craft that goes into it.
And you're constantly thinking about it as well. So that's another thing where you can kind of get down on yourself if you've not had a good idea for a while, and you're just sort of like, oh, what am I doing? And for me anyway, when I do the gigs, it takes a lot out of me after the gigs. You know, I'm sort of shattered regardless if it goes well or not. You know, even if it goes good, I'm not very good if someone's like, oh, that was really good, I'll kind of like deflect. I'm always like sort of on to the next thing. Do you know what I mean?
Why is that?
issues, mate, isn't it?
Go on, say that again.
Self-esteem issues.
Okay, let's take a deep dive into what's in your hurt locker.
Wow, yeah, there's that self-esteem, just that feeling of not feeling good enough. You know what I mean? And even, but so I'll put a lot of, I can tie my self-esteem into how the gigs are going, but I know that to be false, you know, because
Yeah,
I've achieved certain things, like there's like Gong Show, like certain things that I really wanted to get to, and then you've got to that, and it's I enjoy it, but then it's quite empty. You know what I mean? You don't suddenly feel you feel better if you're not mentally already there. You know,
yeah.
or heading that way, or it's yeah. You can just it's never enough. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure that once people even start doing their own theatre runs or whatever, they're like, well, you know, it's not a stadium. Do you know what I mean? It's always like, oh,
The next
it's
level,
like,
the next level, the next level.
it's
Yeah.
never enough. You know what I mean? That's human nature, I'm sure, but it's but I'm getting a lot better at that now, at putting it in perspective, should we say?
Okay. So you've been a comedian for 3 years, etc. I know you kind of twitch at that when I say that you've been a comedian for 3 years and all that. Can you see it's something that's going to be what for the rest of your life?
I mean, I think it's quite hard to sort of make a living from it, but if I'm trying to, I want to sort of enjoy it for what it is. You know what I mean? The process of it. I had a good chat with a friend of mine the other day. I dropped him home after a gig, and he was sort of saying, I love all of it. You know, I love the lights, the chairs, like the people are coming in. So I'm trying to just take it for what it is instead of being like, oh, but I haven't got this yet. And I mean, and social media, you know, just completely fucks you on that front, really. Because anytime you think that you're doing all right, you're like, well, he's got that gig and she's doing this, you know. So it's never it's all my mentality, really, rather than someone else. You know.
Have you in the past? You talk about self-esteem issues. Is that being a lifelong thing or?
So yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's. I used to I used to drink quite a bit. I don't drink anymore. I haven't had a drink for 14 months now, and kind of say, you know, if you want to know why you stop drink, if you want to find out why you drink, then stop drinking. You know, and then it's kind of all sort of comes to the fore, really. But having stopped, it's given me the space to now try and work out why it was a issue. You know,
Was the drinking? Obviously, it was a crutch, to medicate yourself, and that. What was it to escape from?
it's my mind is just constantly, you know, 100 miles an hour, really. With I can catastrophize and just be worrying about things. And I used to get quite severe panic attacks, which I've not had until a little while ago. I had another one, but I think it allows you to be the person that you think you are, or you would want to be, you know. But once you take that away, you sort of find out, you know. I thought that I was quite loud and outgoing, and I'm not really like that, you know. But then it's sort of dealing with that, you know. But you know, the way I weighed it up was you can either carry on drinking for your whole life or stop, go through this now, and then try and work out, you know, try and find a bit of peace, really.
I know you finding peace at the moment.
Slowly. Yeah, slowly, definitely. I'll speak to people and stuff, you know.
Are you, if you don't mind me asking, are you in therapy?
So I had a bit of an episode last Christmas just gone, and that was sort of the point where I asked for help, really.
How was that for you, reaching out, asking for help?
Broken, really, just fucking just fried. You know what I mean? You know when you can't even. So I had a daughter in August last year. So the not sleeping on top of already having some mental health issues was just, and working and trying to do gigs, I was fried really. I couldn't even I could barely even talk, you know what I mean? Well, I thought I couldn't talk. I was having a lot of like depersonalization. I know all these words now from reading up on it, you know what I mean? Googling what's wrong with me. But I just had quite a severe episode of, I've always had these bouts of depression, but it was quite a severe episode at Christmas, and then I was just done really, you know.
Were you suicidal?
Yeah. I've
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Say that again, please.
At that, the last sort of episode that I had, I was
You know what? I just want to say thank you for sharing that with our listeners. It's really important. This is what the Hurt Locker is all about.
So I think it's probably more common than people would acknowledge. But for me, it's almost like it's not that you don't want to live; it's that I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't know if that makes sense, you know. Because then I just couldn't. I just couldn't see a way out of anything really, and then I sort of asked for help.
And now, did you take to therapy?
Therapy a few years ago, but mainly I was going in there just saying, "Oh, I've been drinking again." It was to, because I'd wanted to stop the drinking really, and I just kept going in there, and I was like, "Oh, you know." Be like on a Monday or Tuesday, and you'd still be hungover from the weekend, and I'd be like, "Oh, I've fucking done it again." So the whole therapy thing was like, just wanted to stop drinking really. But now I've done that and got that space, and I didn't really realize that you might not click with a therapist, and being a sort of people pleaser that I am, I'd be like, "Well, fuck you, I've let him down. I don't want him out of work." Do you know what I mean? I've got a new therapist now, and he's excellent really, but it's not easy, I will say that.
I always say to people, in terms of therapy, it's a bit like whether or not you like fish and chips. If you to find a good therapist, if you go to a chippy and you get fish and it's crap, you wouldn't go back there the next day, would you? And it's the same with therapists as well. But I always think that when people seek out therapy, they seek out as if the person's going to fix them, but it's really themselves, because they're the experts of themselves, if that makes sense.
So how honest you're going to be with them, and how much you're willing to open up, because if you're just going in there and lying about how you're feeling, then you're not going to get anything out of it really. But I've built a relationship with this new therapist, and it's but now we're kind of delving into some stuff, and it's I mean, even after that, you can kind of feel pretty low after, but but you're working this stuff out, hopefully for good, really, rather than just bearing it down and having another few drinks or whatever.
And what does your partner think of you going to therapy?
Well, so she's happy that I'm going, because she's seen me in some broken state where because the episode at Christmas, we was going to the Harvester for like a fucking meet and greet with Santa, and on the drive there, it was like it wasn't there. I couldn't feel anything. Like there was no joy, there was no sadness. I just couldn't feel anything, and I was in the restaurant and with all my family, and my sister was there with her boys, and I just had a panic attack. I just couldn't. I was like, I can't function. I can't think, and I had to like leave. But then I went back in, and that was I mean, I was just probably a photo of us somewhere with Father Christmas, and I don't think you'd know what was going on in my head. Do you know what I mean? But
That must have been scary for you.
it was, yeah. And you got, when you got a baby as well, it's like another fucking level of it. You know what I mean? It's not just you. It's not just me. I have to worry about now. And I just completely. It was like a depersonalization. I think this is what it's called. And then I just didn't know who I was really. It was very scary. Yeah. And then I went to the doctors. My doctor's pretty good for getting an appointment. You can normally get there that day. So I think I went the next day or whatever. But it's like you just feel so tired all the time because your brain is just non-stop things that aren't even real, or from the past, from the future, you know. And I went to see the doctor.
Do things from the past haunt you?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. But nothing. I don't know. That traumatic, really. But I think it's how you react to things. I think I must have been very, very sensitive as a kid. You know.
Yeah.
So I remember I was just scared of everything when I was a kid, like dogs, rides, girls. Like I was just petrified of it, absolutely everything. So it's serious. But then there's stuff that you probably, but that's, in the therapy, you kind of working through that stuff you hadn't even really realized would have such an impact on you.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I went to the doctors, and she prescribed. Well, I wanted to get a mental health diagnosis because there's so much, you can just throw around all these terms and all that.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, I'm fairly certain I've got ADHD, but I mean, everybody seems to have that. And the truth is, I probably wouldn't take anything for it anyway. So do I need to know? Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
Not going to that's kind of my attitude, but you might be able to tell me that's the wrong one. I don't know.
I mean, let's be honest about it. I mean, we can go back. We've known about ADHD for almost 250 years. We've known about it for 250 years. I did a podcast with James Brown, associate professor, and he was diagnosed 3 years ago, and with ADHD, and he did a lot of research, etc. And he said, well, we've had that information at our fingertips, but this society doesn't seem to want to know or want to engage in it. And then all of a sudden, we've got this spike now of people being diagnosed. You said that
to get some sort of, because I asked her and she said it's like a 4-year waiting list.
Well, it's funny in your area.
If you're not that, you've got ADHD, you're not that patient. You know what I mean? I'm going to wait 4 years for
100%. 100%.
But I guess, but it's maybe I'm wrong about that, to be honest, because I know of people that have then started they've got their diagnosis and it's given them some sort of clarity, on their thinking. You know what I mean? Because I don't think it's what we would think it is. It doesn't mean you're hyperactive. It doesn't mean you're, it can just be a way of thinking. So maybe some clarity on it would help me. I don't know, but I'd say 4 years. So.
I mean, it's funny because the waiting list here in Liverpool is 7 years. 7 years, unless you go private, which is like.
How much is a private?
I think we're talking about 1,600, and that's not okay.
Surely it doesn't. It wouldn't take. How long does it take to do a diagnosis?
I'm not too sure. I think it is a couple of sessions, and that over a few hours. I might be wrong, but people who've told me they've received it.
Maybe it would give a bit of clarity. But when I asked the doctor, she was kind of a bit like, it's 4 years. You really, she was almost like you're just sort of tired. And she prescribed me some antidepressants, which I chose not to take.
Can I ask why?
to start, you can feel worse before you feel better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way I was when I went into the doctors, I was like, if I feel worse than this, then I don't know what I'm gonna do. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was kind of that really. But I know of people that are on them, and maybe it would help. But I wanted to try and sort of do it naturally and start getting therapy and exercising a bit more and things like that. But I chose not to. Yeah.
Are you doing the therapy? Are you going out for walks? Are you meditating? Mindfulness?
Yeah. I've meditated for quite a long time now. When I was like when I first came back to Spain, actually, my dad's got a mate who's like a guru bloke up in North London, and he took me to him to learn how to. He taught me how to meditate. So I've been. Well, I mean, I hope he was an official guru. But I've been just his mate, I think. But I've learned to meditate, and I've been doing that. I didn't do it initially from then because my mind was just too sort of wide. But I do it every morning, and I've now brought it into doing it in the afternoons as well. So
Nice.
but yeah, I've started some. I like doing it, but sometimes I feel like it can. It makes you feel relaxed, but then it can also make me just feel nothing. You know what I mean? So
Okay.
it can kind of calm down the negative, the continual negative thought patterns or whatever. But I do feel like sometimes it maybe it robs a little bit of your personality. I don't know.
Okay.
I still do it religiously. So yeah.
Okay. Do you journal?
Actually,
Pardon, say that again.
I've just started doing that. I don't know if what I'm doing is I just sort of write where you're at and all that, don't you?
Yeah, it can be in all different forms. I mean, sometimes you don't even have to write. Sometimes you can just use colors to reflect what your moods are as well. And that can be like a nice little legend as well, rather than putting words down.
Thing with like, I think it was from that School of Life or something like that, where they had like certain questions you can ask yourself. So I was sort of like writing them out and then writing out kind of answers, and then it's definitely given me some more clarity for sure. But I've started, I've kind of brought that in now. But then and then again with that, you're like, oh, am I doing it right? And you know what I mean?
Don't worry about that.
Just
Am
do
I
it.
doing it
Yeah.
right? You just do it. Just do it. What works for you?
Writing it out as well, and then being able to see maybe how not, I don't want to say insane, but like how mad your thought patterns are. Where you like, well, there's clearly nothing to think about. It's the same with therapy, really. And 9 times out of 10, you're saying it out loud, and then you're like, oh, like while
Yes.
it's rattling around in your head, it
It's
just
just
drives you
rattling.
insane. Yeah, because you
Absolutely.
don't even really need them to respond. You just say it, and then you're like,
You hear it.
oh yeah, you're like, oh, of course, that's
Yeah.
not true.
And
Do
that's
you know
it.
what I mean?
That's it.
Yeah.
Can I ask, do you like yourself?
Probably at times, yeah, I would say at times, when I'm with my daughter, at times, yeah, not. I wouldn't, I don't have a lot of. I wouldn't say
Tell me about what's it like being a father then for you.
tiring, isn't it? But it's good. I thought people were winding me up really when they said how hard. Like it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, and like, that can't be that bad, can it? And it's knackering, but she's amazing, yeah. And just it's almost, I don't know if this is a thing, but I feel like you're kind of you're loving yourself as a child a little bit as well when you're with them. I think that's maybe the secret of it all. Then you start to you're sort of saying things that you as a child or whatever. But she's really becoming a little character now. So I struggled for the first few months. As men, maybe we feel a bit disconnected. The mother's carried the baby around for 9 months, and I don't know, they have that immediate connection with the baby, and I think sometimes that me personally anyway, I struggled with it a little bit, but yeah, no, she's amazing. Yeah.
Cool. So this summer, are you on tour or?
First leg, so I've been opening for my mate Josh, who I do the sketches with, on his tour. We just finished the first leg of that on Friday, like a big homecoming show. We'd done 2 gigs last Friday night that were, it was amazing, really. But there was we'd done 2. The first one I was sort of nervous about it because he was filming it as well, so you're kind of worrying about, I don't want to fuck it up for him basically. But it was an amazing night. A lot of my friends came down, family, and it was cool. Yeah.
What do your family, what do your folks think of you being on stage? What's your dad fella say?
Well, he doesn't like comedy, which he likes to tell me every time he sort of sees it, only in a joking way. He likes funny things, like, but he was more into, like, he likes the radio, like, like Hancock's Half Hour and all things like that. And that's more his speed. And but yeah, they're very, very proud, I think. But it's I think once because when you start doing open mics, you're sort of just going around and people are like, I didn't tell anyone for a while, but then because it's quite a mad thing to do with your evenings, just be going out, and they're like, would you get paid for it? And you're like, no, I'm just going out, and I'm getting home at midnight and no one's laughing and I'm up for work the next day. But now there's kind of things have started to happen a little bit, and they're quite proud. Yeah.
Your style is described as a deadpan. A bit like is it a bit like what, Jack D, Stuart Lee?
Yeah, a bit like Jack D, really. But I think when you start, it's such an intense, nerve-wracking thing, and for me that was like a defense type thing. You know what I mean? So if I can look like I don't care, then it doesn't matter if they don't laugh. Although, as time's gone on, I'm not as nervous about it, and I'm still, very, very deadpan and miserable. But I think that's just my general vibe. You know what I mean? But there's a fine line with it, because sometimes if I am in a bad mood and miserable, and then you do that, and it can get to a point where people are like, "Is this bloke all right?" Do you know what I mean? But if you're in a good mood and you're being deadpan, it works. But I think if you're in a bad mood and you're doing it, you just sound like you're fucking moaning.
Angry, yeah.
Yeah, angry, and you're just like, what's this bloke's problem? You know what I mean? We've come here.
If you were in a bad mood and you were going on stage, would you stop going on stage if you knew that it would affect your show, your delivery?
No, I'd still do it, I think, because everybody get these like confidence things where you're like, oh, I don't know if what I'm doing here really. But if I thought about it, if I, then I'm like, well, is this what's having a detrimental effect on me? But I think I've always been a little bit like this. But I also think I've had this conversation with someone, and he was like, well, I think you'd probably be even more miserable if you stopped now, because it started to go okay, and then what would you do? You'd just be sitting at home watching EastEnders or whatever, But now you know about this other world.
Okay.
So it's sort of.
Okay.
I do enjoy it. I'll play it down, but I do enjoy it. Yeah.
Could you see a time or envisage a time when you're no longer being a gas fitter, that you're doing comedy full time? Would you like that?
That'd be the dream. Yeah. I'd love that, mate. Yeah. It's like having 2 jobs at the moment, but it's
and that must be hard.
It's knackering. Yeah, it's completely knackering. And then sometimes I'll be working on someone's boiler or whatever, and then you get recognised by someone because our sketches are online or whatever, and they're like, "Are you that bloke?" And I'll just say no, because I can't. Do you know what I mean? I can't, because I can't. Well, if I don't fix the boiler as well, we don't want complaints online. Do you know what I mean? So I want them to be like, "Oh, he's fucking, the sketches are all right, but you don't know what he's fucking doing." You know what I mean? But I have to try and. But yeah, I'm getting a little bit better at that, really, if people recognise me, because I was denying it for quite a while.
Well, just embrace it.
I am getting better at it now, to be fair. And after the shows on Friday, Josh, my mate, he does like a meet and greet with a fan. So he was, and on some nights I'd been avoiding that, but I thought, no, I'll just go out there and meet people, and it was nice shaking hands and all that.
You've got a hard job as it is. I think just to feel the adulation from the crowd.
There's any, I don't think there's anything wrong with. I struggle with, like I say, I've said this before to people, but it's to me, someone saying something good is as bad as someone just going, "Oh, you shit," you know what I mean? So that's something that I'm working on. To me, that's as painful to me. Do you know what I mean?
Think that's a therapy then.
Yeah. We won't get into that here, mate. That's fucking hours.
Recent comedians have spoke about the likes of, I don't know if you've ever done the Edinburgh Fringe and all of that, but
a couple of days before, I'm not going this year, but I'm hoping to maybe do a show next year or the year after. But I only went up there for a couple of days to do a competition. But I weren't drinking, so it was all right. But you can see it kind of. I went up twice, once at the beginning of the month and then once 3 weeks in, and you can see it having a detrimental effect. By the third week, people look a bit, fucked, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
I think it would take it out of me, so I'd have to be kind of really into what I was.
Prepare, have safeguards as well.
Yeah, and I think you can just go out there and do your show, but I think you could get caught up in the partying of it all as well, and then it's all going to have a knock-on effect. You know what I mean? Depends what you want out of it, really. But what fucks me up with gigs and things like that is putting all these expectations on how the gig's going to go and what's going to happen after. Almost, like I'm going to come off stage and someone's going to be there with a contract or whatever. But you have to that would just ruin the whole thing. You have to kind of take that out of it and just enjoy it for what it is, because you can only do what you're doing, really.
Absolutely. Do you think being a comedian nowadays is getting harder?
In it now, yeah, and you've got to play the game a little bit with social media.
That's what I was going to refer to as well. You've got to do your sketches and all of that.
Yeah, and I'll put out like a couple of clips and things like that. But I find the whole thing of it, and for how I am, and I delete Instagram off my phone for a few days of the week or whatever. Otherwise, I'm just scrolling through it constantly, and I don't think that's very good for creativity either, just to be stuck online, because you're just regurgitating what everybody else has said. You've got no time to think. If you're any free time that you have, you're on social media, I think what I noticed sort of after I had that bit of a breakdown really at Christmas was that I was just consuming so much information all the time. Do you know what I mean? That you're driving around, you're listening to podcasts, you're reading, you're writing, you're watching films, and it's just listening to music. It's just everything. It's just so much information, and I know when my mental health is spiraling because I'll be listening to LBC, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that's like I'm trying to find something to start worrying about, really. Like World War III or whatever.
Okay.
It's like I'm trying to cling on to. It's like you're or like I'll be reading a lot of self-help stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay, something's going wrong here. Not going wrong, but what's missing, and then normally it's I just need to sit there and do fuck all. But as Mickey Flanagan said, proper fuck all, like just staring at the wall. Do you know what I mean? Like not because that would be watching telly or listening to some. But I mean, literally nothing is the best thing, I think.
What's your downtime like when you do have a downtime?
Now with the baby, really, but she goes to bed sort of early-ish, and then But that was another thing. I was just completely burnt out, really, because you're getting from work, you're eating, and you're running off to go and do a gig, and there's no time to just sit there and relax. But I'm getting better at carving out that time, I think, because I understand how important that is. Otherwise, I'm going to be, like I say, just in a mess, really. And if I don't do that, then you can't have any of the other stuff.
100%. Do you recognize if you were coming close to burnout?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Yeah. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I recognise it now. Yeah, like I say, I'll be sort of. It's almost like you struggle. I'm scratching around for an answer somewhere. Do you know what I mean? That's kind of when I'll be like, you know, I'm online listening to fucking, you know, rum dust and like, which are all great things, but I know that if I'm doing too much of that, then I'm, you know, I'm trying to find an answer, and I don't really think there is. You know what I mean? I think you probably already know.
You know what? Yeah, the answer's probably just in you.
And if like I say, if I've already done that for years, then hopefully one of them things would pop up. You know what I mean? Like all these, because there's so many. Once if you start looking at them self-help things, or you know, watch this 10-minute video and this is the key to your life. You know what I mean? And it ain't. You know, it's it's more information that you're piling on.
It's true.
I was already overloaded, and I needed to delete some of that stuff. Really,
Louie, you mentioned it before, and I'm just wondering, people pleaser. Who is it that you're pleasing?
I think it's you just want to be liked, really. You know what I mean? I'm going through a lot of that stuff in therapy, so you know.
Yeah, that's okay.
I don't want to.
It's all right.
Flag anyone off, really.
No,
but it's but you do. It's I don't know. It's almost a fear of people, because for me, if someone's laughing, then I know they like me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I've always operated, and growing up with when you got ginger hair and that, people take the piss out of you at school, so you need to learn some other ways of dealing with that, which is normally, you know, get good at playing football and try and be a bit funny.
Yeah.
So then for me, but then the problem is then when you start doing comedy, you're then tying that in with something you're trying to do, you know. But I've got better at separating them things. But yeah, I don't know. But I'd normally try and do something to please someone else to the detriment of myself, probably.
Now you know that. What do you do with it?
Well, sometimes I worry now that you're being a bit of an arsehole. Do you know what I mean?
Why?
I'm
no, I know you're not, but why does your mind go that way, take that route? Because, yeah, you've heard me ask this before, but who's the most important person in your life?
My daughter now.
It's you. You're the most important person in your life.
I don't.
How does that feel? Me saying that to you?
Don't believe you, mate.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool.
No, yeah,
why?
I understand that you need to be a bit more. I think if I even had 10% of being a little bit more like that, than putting everything that I do down or myself, then then I wouldn't. It would be it wouldn't be a problem, really, you know. But I don't. Yeah, I struggle with it. I really do.
I always find it fascinating. You know, we're talking about mental health and that, and it's like, I think there's this assumption that comedians have got it all boxed off, you know, that they don't have any struggles in life, they don't have any life challenges and all of that, you know. They can go out there on the stage with the lights and make the world laugh.
Well, what's mad is that's probably the time where I feel the most present. when you're actually doing it. Like the thing beforehand and after is different, but when you're on there, you're in control and people are listening to what you have to say, and hopefully it's funny. But I think that's the time when you also I don't know if that's also an ADHD thing where it's like it's such an intense thing that you can only be present, you know.
Yeah, but also at the same time you're being seen.
Yeah.
And that's important as well.
Yeah, and
Because,
it's you're in. I mean, things can go wrong, obviously, but they, you know, but on the times when that has happened, things go, people shouting stuff out or whatever. It's perfectly fine, really. You just deal with it,
absolutely.
you know, because you're in that role, so you're okay with that.
I think, you know what, I've loved having you on the Hurt Locker because it's not easy, it's not comfortable, but one of the things that I've got to say I've admired about you is your authenticity, your honesty. You haven't kind of tried to swerve me, you know. I see you, and that's important.
Sometimes I think because I'm quite open with people if I'm not, you know, not feeling good or whatever, or but sometimes I can do that with people I don't really know that well, and then you're like, well, they don't. Some people don't want to hear it so much. Do you know what I mean? I know this is a mental health podcast and all that, but you can like open up too much to someone, and then you're like, oh, I shouldn't have.
Overshared.
Yeah. Just
You
that's
feel like you've overshared, and yeah. And
for sure. Yeah.
what I think as well is that we should have more of these meaningful conversations.
Yeah, all my pals are very good with that. Not so much. But if I had a problem, then they'd be like, "Come on, we'll go out for a bit of dinner." Like, we would do stuff, you know what I mean? And then we'd sort of discuss it. And so my mates are very good for that, really. But not in a way where they're like overly, you know. But they would definitely help. But sometimes, I say, you feel like you're burdening people, don't you?
Wow. Okay, look, right, I'm going to say this. When I hear that word burden and burdening, that's my response where I listen, I'm attuned to that. And my response is, you're not burdening anybody.
Yeah, sometimes I'll flip it, and then you'd be like, well, if someone comes to me saying this, I'll do everything I could to help them.
100%.
So why would you be any? Why would I be any different? But that's not how we think, unfortunately.
It's not, and I think there's so much. It doesn't matter how much information is out there. We still don't have honest, meaningful conversations.
I think more as well. It's how'd you bring it up?
You know what? You're too young to remember this, but your old fella, he'll remember 30, 40 years ago when they used to do the advert for cancer. They'd never say the word cancer. They'd just say the big C and mouth it. And it's like, now you see Macmillans and everything else and looking at the strides that they're making. And I think with regard to mental health, with regard to suicide, we need to get to that stage as well.
Yeah, why are we pretending that it's not a thing? Everybody knows it's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And would you? Because you asked me earlier, you know, have you felt suicidal? Would you be as blunt as that with people? Would you say?
Yes.
With your pals and all that, yeah.
Oh, it's important. It's important when asking about suicide to be direct. Okay, and the reason for it is twofold. If people say things like, "You're not thinking of doing anything stupid," or
that's
what does that mean?
mainly what you hear, innit? You're not thinking of doing
that doesn't mean anything. But if you ask the word, "Are you experiencing thoughts of suicide?" at least you know it's yes or no.
Yeah, and it's
And just a final thing to that is you can't put the thoughts of suicide into somebody's head. It's either there or it's not.
Yeah,
So that's why we always ask directly.
Yeah, and I think because the main thing people say when it happens around them is, "Oh, boy, you know, I wish you would have said." You know.
Isn't that interesting? That.
Yeah, my dad's mate committed suicide. I don't know. It must have been about 10, 12, 13 years ago now.
Can I ask how old your dad is?
60.
Okay, so he's in that demographic whereby suicide is the biggest killer of men in that demographic. Okay. Did your dad ever talk to you about his mate dying by suicide?
No, not really. No.
He's never spoke about it.
He said what had happened, but yeah, that was about it, really.
And that was it. End of conversation.
Basically, yeah.
Can I tell you this? That when somebody's been bereaved or affected by suicide, they then join a high-risk category group of between 80 and 300% higher than the general population to die by suicide themselves.
That because it's then become a possibility for them or whatever.
Yeah. Fact, the research is out there. The research is out there.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, even with his pals are all quite open, really. They sort of look after each other. So I don't know if he just didn't want to talk to his son about it. So I'm sure he would have. But I don't know.
Would you ever ask him following this podcast if he's ever had thoughts about suicide? And I think if I'm guessing you'd say no because
probably not.
Because you have a particular outlook and mentality of who your alpha fella is. And so if he said he had that thought of suicide, would you look at him differently?
I don't think I would. I'd look at him different, but maybe in a more positive way. Not that I don't look at my dad in a positive way, but I'd admire the openness, I think.
Yeah.
Just at the end of the day, we're all just fucking trying to get by, and we're all people. And I think you see that when you have kids as well. You're like, they didn't know what they were doing either. Do you know what I mean? Not they didn't know what they were doing.
It's true.
We're all really. Nobody knows what they're doing. You know what I mean?
We're all winging it.
No one's got a clue of that.
No, it's true. We're all winging it.
Yeah.
But some people are better at faking it than others.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
They really, really are.
I don't think. Yeah. It's always the people you don't see it coming with, I guess. Is what you hear a lot. I've been lucky not really experienced it around me.
Have you seen that Norwich City video of the two Norwich City supporters? Do a little Google afterwards.
Right.
Do a little Google afterwards.
I've had a few episodes in my life where it's been a possibility. You know what I mean? And then I've then later on told a friend or whatever, and they're like, "You should have said." Do you know what I mean? Like, why? Quite a few years ago now, I was out with my mate and we were sort of like drinking or whatever. And I don't know, I can't really remember because I was hammered, but I must have been saying something. I don't know. But the next day, he sort of texted me to say, "Look, if you're feeling anything, we'll get you help. We'll look after you. Like if you need any help." And it was just when Keith Flint had committed suicide. So I think that then, and he was like, then he had kind of, become aware of the signs or whatever. It kind of made people aware for a little while. It's terrible that it has to happen, like that. But and then that's sort of like the first time I got a bit of help, really. And
did you receive it? Did you accept it?
I did, yeah. It just made me really emotional when he said it. You know what I mean? Because you don't think about people thinking of you like that.
Why?
You know what I mean?
Louie, you're loved.
Yeah, I know.
No, lad, you're loved. Look, and you know what you just did then? You looked away then as if like, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah. Trying to escape, mate. I think dinner's ready. I think, but yeah, no, it is. I think, yeah, but it can also be, because Christmas feeling like that, and you're like, you can kind of feel bad about even thinking it, because I've, at a time, I've got a very young daughter. You're like, how can you even fucking think like that? But then there's a loop, a negative thought loop with that. Whereas probably it would be better to express it and get help, which is what I did. But I think it can. There's a lot of negativity that comes with that. Like, how could you even think something like that? And so you don't control what you think,
No, you don't. And you just need to turn to the people who are going to be supportive of you, not those who are going to be critical.
No, and I think the majority of people who are around you would be supportive, wouldn't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think anybody, no one will be like, fucking.
Look, last year, 7,055 people died by suicide in the entire UK. 3/4 of them were men. We don't talk.
Yeah,
we don't talk.
Yeah, and even, it's amazing what you're doing here as well, and it's it just, like, it's just having them open, honest conversation, because it'd be people, you don't expect it from, really. Not that there's a certain, someone who's just moping around. It probably wouldn't even be that person. But
and I've got to say this as well, you being on the Hurt Locker, you having an open and honest conversation, I can guarantee that you're helping people yourself just by people listening to what you've got to say.
Yeah, I'd hope so, mate. Yeah, it's not. You'd hope.
It's important. We've got I think we've got a couple of questions for you as well. I'm just from listeners, so I'm just saying. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Oh gosh, got loads. Tim's been busy. I've had you on full screen. Tim's been piling up the chat, and I didn't even notice it.
What's he saying? Can't hear us. Nothing. Talking for a fucking hour, mate. Too late now.
We've got question number 1 from a Pat Smith. Asks, how being ginger has impacted your mental health? I think that's just taking the piss there, isn't it?
Yeah. He's all right. He's got a ginger beard though, so you can tell him to shut up, mate.
Yeah, shut up, Pat. Okay. Okay. Question from Amanda. She's asked, how did you meet Josh James?
So I did a gig, competition there's a place called Up the Creek in Greenwich, and they have a gong show there called the Blackout. So you go on stage and you've got 5 minutes, but there's 3 members of the audience that got cards. So if they don't like what you're doing, they put up the cards and you have to get off.
Sandman.
Oh, it's fucking brutal. But I've done it a few times, and then the time I'd done it, then Josh was hosting it, and then he come up to me after, and he was like, that was really good. Do you want to do some writing, or like, try and do something together?
How did that feel?
It was cool. Yeah. I mean, I've spoke to him about it since, and he said that I was just completely disinterested, but I wasn't. You know what I mean? That's just like my how I am. I didn't. I can be. I don't mean to be, but it would be more like I'd be deflecting. Like we said, like if anyone said anything nice, so I thought it would have been not expecting him to be saying that. But then we done a Trophy Hunters sketch about a month after that, and then that's it. It's just taken off since then. Become very good friends, and he's been amazing to me, really. So yeah, don't tell him I said that.
I won't. But it just lends a question for me. How important is trust in your life?
Very, very, I think, actually, yeah. And if someone had broken that, I don't really have much troubles with getting them cutting them out of my life, really. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense.
Just sort of completely. It wouldn't, you know, if someone had done something or whatever, it wouldn't bother me. So then they'd just be, you know, completely gone. I wouldn't have to give it a second thought, almost, you know.
Third question. Claire asks if Louie is single. Oh, I'm unsure of her intentions, so we'll move on that one. Okay.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Wow. Interesting. Going back to when we were talking about receiving an assessment, Tim's give us a stat that there's been a 900% increase in referrals.
Right.
Looks like.
But no tests.
He says it is with 15 minutes, 15 questions, but it takes ages to get to the session.
Right. Could that it's like the 4-year waiting list? Could that not just cause more problems for people who just sort of, you know,
100%
quite quickly need fucking help? You know what I mean?
100% it does.
They're almost just assuming you'll be all right. You know.
Yeah, and the thing is, what I say is that, well, this person's
asked for help,
and then you're waiting 4 years, and that's going to be compounded with 4 years of their life.
Yeah, we know it's like it's hard as blokes
it is.
Well, I'm sure women, but you're like, oh, I can't, you know, I'll be all right. Do you know what I mean? You just constantly like, it's fine. I won't even ask.
Yeah,
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Okay. Do the social skits with Josh allow you to mix the different approaches, play other characters?
Yeah. I really enjoyed doing the sketches, actually, a lot more than I would have thought I would. I quite like the acting. Having said that, I'm pretty much the same in most of them. Do you know? I'm like the dry one, and so it's like that. It's that classic double act type thing. But I'm not sure if I've stretched myself, should we say, in acting. But yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah.
Is there any television work coming up for you?
No, I did. I was on the BBC last year. I'd done the BBC New Comedy Awards. Okay. So I got through to that. We had to go down to Wales to film it, which was pretty cool. Okay. Yeah, I really enjoyed that, actually. I went down there with my brother. And that went out on, I think it's still on the iPlayer, actually.
It will be. What about radio?
No, not really. No, radio is something that I'd like to do, actually. To like we were saying before, like my dad likes. I'm a big fan of them things as well, like Hancock's Half Hour, and a lot of them things sort of start on the radio, and that's something I would like to do. But I think podcasting has sort of taken over that.
It has.
World.
Have you listened to Evil Genius?
No.
With Russell, is it Russell Kane?
Yeah.
He hosts it, but he has loads of comedians on there.
Right. Okay. I'll check that out.
You know, and I think, that'd be right up your street.
Yeah. But I like them. Mighty Boosh. Like, a few things started on the radio, and the radio shows are, I think, just better because it's your own imagination, isn't it? You know?
Absolutely. Louie, I've got to say thank you.
Well, thank you, mate. Yeah, sorry about the last time when we couldn't.
No, it's been brilliant. You're brilliant. Seriously, don't change.
Cheers,
don't
mate.
Change. What you've had to say today has been really important, and I really, really sincerely appreciate what you've shared with our listeners and myself today.
Yeah, no, thank you, mate, as well. Thanks for having me on, and it's been great.
You know, so thank you for being on the Hurt Locker.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Pleasure. Take care, mate. See you later.
Okay.
Thank you for watching. Remember, you are not alone. If you or someone you care about is struggling with their mental health, please see the contact information in this episode's description for further support.